Shut up and sit down.
It's where the big boys play. SICW.
Welcome to Brody Podcast, everybody. Episode number 97. I myself have a little bit of a cold, so I'm going to pass it to Jim and Bobby to talk most of the time.
I mean, Bobby does most of the talking anyway, so I mean that's probably fine.
Yeah.
So anyway, we got Nate Dogg over there in the hat, Bobby over there on the right of us, and of course, Big Texan right here. Wanted to talk to you guys just a tad bit before we start this episode. We were supposed to have the son of Paul ORNDORFF on this week. We had announced him and everything. Might be a little communication problems that we might be having, but he might hop on here. Of course, we're going to still talk about and celebrate Paul ORNDORFF, and even have a couple matches lined up just to watch over. But before we hit that out, I do want to say I was greatly surprised today because our subscribers just went through the roof kind of like all in one day, because we were sitting at 739 and now we're at 800 and what I say 834 or 839. It's like jumped up like 100 subscribers in a day. Anybody?
Yeah, that's a great jump. Thanks a lot.
What was it, Nate?
I'm checking now. It is 839, so 100 exactly.
Yeah, so that's just crazy. Really kind of unheard of for like a local promotions podcast. I just couldn't believe it, because I know for the longest time my personal one was my goal number to hit for us. And you guys, we just like blew past that one, so I'm kind of excited about that. And it's probably all because of we announced that we were going to have Travis on. So hopefully he does get on. He is in Georgia, and we're in the St. Louis area. And I know we're supposed to have a storm hit tomorrow, but I don't know where it's coming from. If it's coming from southeast or coming down from, the Canada area. But so we just hope that he's doing good. And like I said, he might pop on here in a little bit. But Nate, you got some footage we can roll real quick?
Yeah, we posted the one with Bob Orton Jr. earlier. And this one I've seen a few times. And just to look at Paul's freaking neck muscles, freaking huge. He has no neck. It just goes head, neck muscles, shoulders.
So I'll just kind of talk over while we watch this. So Paul, he had a kind of misfortunate type of childhood growing up. We'll just say that his mother was like the one that does the punishments and stuff like that, but it was more of a neglecting type of childhood from his mother's side. And
on April 17th, 2007.
Sorry.
Not a problem. But anyway, so Paul actually did really well for himself. He lived in a trailer growing up, and he got like sports was his thing. So he ended up getting some what do they call it? Real, and man, they're achievements, but records. He's got some records still. For the long jump, and I think for discus, the throw there. He started doing football. He actually got signed.
Yeah, he was played for University of Tampa and was drafted to the New Orleans Saints.
And the 12th. Hearing from Travis, there was some issues, like there was some initiations that the Saints had back in the day. and Paul didn't want anything to do with those. Didn't want anything to do with that kind of atmosphere, so he actually quit and drove home. And the story goes, him and his dad were watching TV together, and all of a sudden some wrestling came on, and he looked at his dad and he goes, "I think I can do that." And his dad said, "What?" And he goes, "I think I can be a wrestler." And within supposedly how Travis said it, his grandfather, Paul's dad, was one of those guys that knew everyone, and he knew the local wrestling promoter and made a phone call and got Paul a spot. He still had to train.
That promoter was Eddie Graham down in Florida.
Yeah, Eddie Graham. Yes, Florida's Championship Wrestling. He had a very famous trainer. Does it say what is? Because I'm going to butcher his name. Yamasato. It was the same trainer that trained Hulk Hogan. And, you know, the thing with Hulk Hogan goes, when Hogan went in there to train, they ended up, beating him down and breaking his. Well, some stories say they broke his leg. Some people say that they broke his ankle, just to see if he would come back. And of course, Hogan, you know, as soon as he healed, he did come back. Maybe if Bobby can search who trained Hulk Hogan, we can get that name.
Hiro Matsuda.
There we go. Like I said, I knew I was going to butcher it. But yeah, so he trained through them and then started his spot on the NWA. And let's see here.
He went to Mid-Southern Wrestling, feuded with a young Jerry Lawler, working with the NWA Tri-State Promotions, feud with Ernie Ladd, NWA Tri-Nation. He did a lot of tag team stuff. I was listening to one of Travis's podcasts earlier. He did a lot of different tag team stuff, had a lot of different partners.
Yeah, so I have him down as being the NWA Southern Heavyweight Champion in 1977. He was the NWA Tri-States North American Heavyweight. He was the NWA Tag Team Champion with Snuka, NWA National Heavyweight Champion. And from there, he went on to WrestleMania 1.
Main event.
Right. I mean, of course, there was some time before WrestleMania had started because, WrestleMania was the big trial and error. It was either going to, take off or sink the ship. And it took off. I love this match that we got going on because we're so close with Bob Orton. And having Bob go against Paul Orndorff, I thought that was very cool. We also have another match that has some other people that we know, Ron Powers, of course, Bob again. But
I say looking at Orndorff there, it's like there was another one that Travis had said where they didn't allow sugar and stuff like that in their house. And so like he joked around that they never enjoyed a meal growing up.
Yeah.
It's like you look at him and be like, yeah, he don't eat no sugar.
Yeah, the thing was he always said you eat to live, not live to eat. So there was no sugar, no salt. They were, I think, allowed to use pepper, but no ketchup, nothing like that. They had sugar in it.
He said
so
a frequent meal was grape nuts that they would soggy up and whatnot, and maybe season a little bit.
Yeah, here's the one with a few other of the friends of podcast and you guys. Well, us. Ron Powers before he got gray.
Yeah. So this is right off when he was training basically with Bruiser Brody, because for a while there, when they went to Japan and stuff, they would call him Brody's son. And I don't know if he ever went further with that, but I think he would have been the one to do it right. There was a lot of people that pretended to be like Brody, but Ron probably had the most travels with him. Yeah, so this is kind of cool to see Orndorff and Bob and Ron in the same match. Definitely very cool seeing more people that we know and hang out with, and pretty much.
I don't know him,
making
but
it
Chris
family.
Adams cool to see in there too.
Yeah, so the actual voices we can't hear, but yeah, Terry Funk is the one that's actually announcing this, not announcing it, but doing the play-by-play in this match. So, you know, Jim Cornette and Terry Funk, and I believe Larry Matisek is on this too.
The other one force him into his corner, so therefore they're back into the corner. Very smart on both their parts. And the only thing that these only common viewpoint that both of these guys have is that they both absolutely dislike and despise each other. That's the only thing they've got in common. That's what's going to make it. The same thing goes for Mr. Wonderful and P.T. Powers. Yeah. Oh, nice maneuver. Reversal right back by Orton, right into an armbar, quick tag. See, oh, right up on the down. There goes Mr. Wonderful from the top rope. High risk maneuver. They're going to work on Bob Orton right now. Mr. Wonderful is in the ring, and he is ready to rock and roll.
Who's the heel in this? Because they were both heels.
Chris Adams is hanging on his arm. He doesn't go anywhere.
Paul was pretty good as a baby or a heel. So I imagine in this particular match, Paul is the baby. Well, Paul's team is the baby face team.
Yeah, that's what Travis talked about his dad doing face good guy a lot. And then he was way more comfortable being a heel.
Chevy, no.
Put a little pressure. Bob Orton's arm, working on it, an arm bar.
None of the things I've seen about Paul, he was talking about being the heel.
Ooh, heavy tackle. These guys are big
So
guys.
actually in WrestleMania 1, he was the heel. He tagged with Roddy Piper. And then Bob was like their enforcer. Going against Hulk Hogan and Mr. T. Of course, they had Superfly Snuka.
He's got a face on it.
Chevy?
Like a reversal to a hammerlock. Beautiful leg trip by Orndorff.
Yeah, professionals, people.
Working on the arm. You know, we talked about tag team action before. The secret, the whole point of it is
Bob Orton's wrestling again this Saturday.
and they've got problems.
Yeah, I saw that.
Mr. Wonderful, Paul Orndorff, Chris Adams, they've worked together before. They're very good at
He's
it.
wrestling against Attila, isn't he?
Adams going to the top rope. Again, you see Orndorff hanging on to secure that position to give Adams the ability to come off the top rope. They just kind of traded positions that time, still working on that arm on Orton, and there you see that wrist lock or arm bar right there.
Ron Powers on there.
What's that?
Trying to push him back.
Couldn't get all Ron Powers in there.
Corner to make that tag.
There's just an old school big man match.
Towards
Yeah.
the side.
Ron Powers coming to the Green House.
They've been in command.
Even the referee's a big man.
From the very beginning, the momentum.
But like I was saying, after WrestleMania, you know, it kind of ended with Bob hitting Paul with his broken arm, per se. And so that actually started to turn Paul baby. And then him and Roddy Piper were going after it for a while. But there was a lot of matches between Paul and Hulk Hogan. Because that's one thing that Paul always said, that him and Hogan made money. You know, it's mainly because he said that he would drive Hogan. You know, everyone else would let Hogan, you know, take the lead in the match, and Paul said no. Paul took the lead, and so Hogan had to try to follow up and catch up to Paul. And they always talked about how Paul had like a second gear, like when everyone else was, you know, blown up, Paul was still ready to go and being able to take people further than what they expected.
I mean, again, look at him compared to everyone else in the ring in this video. And he's in the ring with stars.
Man, you would think as old as Ron is now, if you're watching this, Ron, you know you're old. You still have the same amount of hair. Every
Well,
time I've seen Ron, he still has the same amount of hair.
He's got the same amount of hair as the top of that haircut, baby.
Yeah, because he's got it cut short now, don't he?
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
like
he
Bud.
cut it short for the last one, but
this is the classic Ron. This is when I first got into wrestling. This is how Ron looked.
you know that Ron obeyed the rules, and I don't know. It kind of seems like Ron and Bob are the baby faces in this one.
No, I heard cheering and then when you saw Orndorff flung the other guy earlier, and then he stopped and posed and pumped the crowd up.
Jim, did you ever watch the Tuesday Night Titan stuff that WWE had?
I'm sure I did. I mean, like I said, I wasn't a WCW fan growing up. I was all about the WWF. Because when I was doing some research on Paul, there was a bunch of videos that I didn't see because it was WCW. Now, during Paul and Hogan's multiple matches that they had together, Paul had actually hurt something in his arm, and that's he never did have surgery on it at all, and what's the word, atrophied his arm. Yeah, because he never had it fixed, and so later in his career, his right arm was a lot skinnier and smaller than his left, because he would still work out, but it would not grow anymore. So that's one thing in the WCW stuff that I started watching, because after he left WWF at the time, and evidently he hated the way he left, because he just up and left. He didn't tell anyone. He just started no-showing the events. And then eventually, of course, they figured, oh, well, he left.
Well, he had a grudge with Vince at the time, though. That's why he left.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's the only reason to leave. So then he took his shot at, he went back to WCW. Of course, then WCW was part of the NWA. So he started doing work for them. And that's when you started seeing the difference in the arm. Is when he went to WCW. He always did a lot of interviews where he said that he wishes he would have been able to patch things up with Vince. But talking about, the older generation being a little stubborn, he had figured that so much time had passed that it wasn't worth going back and rehashing it. So he just never talked to Vince again.
Well, one thing Travis said in one of his other interviews too, though, and this one surprised me, that Paul Orndorff was like an introvert. He didn't want to go to crowds. He didn't want to talk to people. He just wanted to be home. So maybe some of that was he didn't want to get out there and go talk to him. Like he said that they had never went to any sporting event or nothing.
Didn't want people bugging.
He said Paul was a big music fan. Never went to a single concert. He said the closest they did was something like Bruce Springsteen was doing like the test with their audio after they set up, and they were like the only ones there, so they stopped and watched that.
And if you look at Paul's arms in this one, you can see a difference in definition on his left and right.
This was probably, well, I don't know, because this is probably...
Well, this is in 92.
Yeah, it might have been, but it was very clear when he was in WCW. This might have been, I would hate to say it, but I want to say this was probably when they were all in Smoky Mountain, which was Jim Cornette's organization. But some other things. Let's see here. He was inducted into the NWA Hall of Fame in 2009. Inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame in 2005. And then CAC, which is we like to talk about. In 2016, he was the men's wrestling winner as well. So it's very cool. He got to go to CAC. And there's a video on YouTube of Travis inducting his father into the CACs.
Yeah, and the picture we put up was from those two at the CACs. But we have more pictures to go through sent by Mr. Herb Simmons.
Yes, because Paul did come through SICW. And I was trying to find pictures of me and Paul, but I guess I didn't save them in my phone. So now I got to wait for that timeline to come back by through Facebook and pull those pictures off. But Paul, I was in WWF growing up as a kid. You're looking for the baby faces. At least I favored the Jimmy Snukas, the Hulk Hogan, the Ultimate Warrior. But then as you start to get older, you start to appreciate, the Rowdy Pipers and the Paul Orndorffs and, Ace Cowboy Bob Orton, and for that heel factor, the Ravishing Rick Rude. And then you start realizing that, it takes both people to make a great match. It takes that incredible heel of a Ravishing Rick Rude to go against the Hulk Hogan, or one of the best feuds with Ravishing Rick Rude was when he went against Jake the Snake Roberts, because he even did his long pants that he would wear. He airbrushed Jake the Snake's wife on the front of it. And he always would do that, little sexy type dance in front of the audience before his matches. So he was able to make Jake's wife's face move when he would do it. And it's pretty funny. And we've been talking about Ravishing Rick Rude here the last couple of weeks just because the action figures that come out. What was his name? Gerald Briscoe. How we talked about how a couple of weeks ago he got into a storage unit and found a bunch of the belts, and he found his wrestling at the St. Louis Hall of Fame plaque he had, and that actually made it in the news and everything. But Gerald Briscoe showed pictures where he found those tights from Ravishing Rick Rude that had Jake the Snake's wife airbrushed onto him. So it's just kind of cool that stuff like that still exists.
That's trolling on a different level.
Oh, and Ravishing Rick Rude was, man. He was a great heel. And Paul was too. He basically in WrestleMania 1, he was the one that was wrestling, I would say, because Roddy Piper wanted to beat the crap out of Mr. T, mainly because Mr. T was an outsider to the business, and he wasn't going to take anything from a guy that was considered an outsider. So during that match, you see a lot of times where Roddy Piper, he's not wrestling him. He's like punching him and kicking him, because he said he would do everything to beat up Mr. T. And that's why WrestleMania 2, they end up having Mr. T versus Roddy Piper in a boxing match. But Paul, of course, he was in there to actually wrestle. So he was the one wrestling Hogan. And then when Mr. T, not being a wrestler, would come in and interfere in not the proper time, Paul would actually have to hold him down and put him in a lock hold, whether he was grabbing his arm or grabbing his leg. Amazingly, a lot of times he just put him in not a headlock, but a front lock facing the mat just to calm Mr. T down.
There's a face you don't want to see in the dark alley.
Probably don't want to see it during the daylight either. That was
Depends if he was drinking and throwing beer, though.
I said to myself, sooner or later, Race, you're going to be world champion. Well, it took 14 years before it happened the first time. Teddy,
I thought it was earlier than that.
You're in a position that you've got all kinds of people talking about you.
You had to pay your dues for a while.
Ballooning your head to where you cannot find a hat that's big enough to fit it.
Not with that long. Damn, you have more hair than I've ever had.
Of being the world champion. Telling you that you're capable of beating the world champion at any time. Well, don't let that big head overload your backside. Because, buddy, when you come for this, you're coming for the very best. You're coming for a man that's going to stop at absolutely nothing to keep what he's got. I've been in your position. I know where you're coming from. You're not going to stop at anything either. If you did, you don't deserve to be in there. You come to be.
How did Harley only have great on his mutton chops?
Exactly what you can do. And do it as often as you can possibly do it. Because I'm going to be there on the exact opposite side, doing what I can do better than any other man on the face of the earth. And that's wrestle, buddy. I'm going to be in there all the way. I'm not going to lay down and play dead for you or any other human being. Mm-hmm. I don't care how good a young wrestler you are. I'm the most fantastic, for the want of a better expression, old wrestler that ever walked in that ring. I am the king of that squared circle. I am the man.
Squared ring now.
I am the man that can say he can beat any man in the world because the top of the buckle says it for me. DiBiase, when you come for me, please come prepared for that man.
Always talking about DiBiase.
Paul Orndorff and Ted DiBiase.
Oh, this is that tag match.
Orndorff and Ted DiBiase. Paul's probably a little thinner.
Man, look at how much of a baby Ted was. Damn.
Might say the same thing.
Don't think he could shave you.
Teddy and Orndorff, back at this point in time, were both wrestling for Leroy Dirk and Bill Watts out of Oklahoma. And Bulldog was around the Kansas City area with Geigel, O'Connor, and myself. I think at the end of this match, we don't want to give that away already, do we? We were watching for a while.
It's a good ending, though.
But
it's a very good ending.
He was a fabulous young wrestler. His father died in my arms in Lubbock, Texas, about 5-6 years ahead of this, maybe a little longer. That's how far back Teddy and myself go. He was like maybe 10, 11, 12 years old when I first met him. And Orndorff was a fabulous football player. He turned down several different opportunities to play pro ball because this is what he'd always wanted to do all of his life. And he was just a phenomenal.
Good back bridge.
Look at a great bridge right here.
Oh yeah, some of the things that he could do.
Man, that's some strength. That's some core strength.
Yeah.
Just got stronger.
That's worse than a kick up.
Around the New York area in the latter part of his career.
Don't know if Bulldog was helping him on that.
If ever any individual could say that about themselves, Paul Orndorff was one of them. But again, you're around the Missouri area, in St. Louis being a part of it, and I'm fairly sure this tape here is from St. Louis. They had to deal with me while they were out here, and I wasn't easy to deal with most of the time.
No, Harley, you weren't easy.
Yeah, this is a televised match from Wrestling at the Chase.
Wrestling at the Chase is probably the most recognizable of all television ever shot. I've been all over the world countless times, and more people ask you about Wrestling at the Chase than they do any venue that you've ever been, whether it be Madison Square Gardens, the Cow Palace, or any of those. Wrestling at the Chase was probably viewed by more people than any other place. Had a pretty decent headbutt back then.
Yeah, we use those quite a bit.
So the great thing is, I was telling Nathan before we started, yes, that was just at Harley Race's, well, they call it Harley Race's Arena, watching WLW. Actually, it's now called NWA WLW. Of course, one of our favorite friends of the podcast, Brandon Beretta, made his debut Saturday there. And he took on Moses, which Moses is a hell of a wrestler. But I would like to say that Brandon took the pin that night. I mean, he won. So it was a hands down, out of that whole show, Brandon's match, no bias, it was the best match that night. Couple of the matches had a couple of rookies in there.
You trained him. He's a protege of yours, and he's a friend of us all. No bias at all.
No bias. Like I said, there was some cool matches. Let's see, another friend of ours, Austin Militalo, was in a tag match. His tag partner was a veteran who was missing a leg and had a prosthesis on, and they wrestled against the WLW's tag champions, and it was actually a pretty good match too. But the guy who had the prosthesis on, you could tell he was newer into the business. And then there was a singles match that had they called him Big Mike, but you can tell Big Mike was still pretty new. So great matches, but you can just tell which ones have been in there for a while, which ones haven't. So yeah, Brandon's match, him against Moses, man, was a hell of a match.
I just want to point something out to everybody. As much as Jim has trouble saying things, prosthesis came out perfect.
Because I slowed it down.
Just don't ask him to say Massachusetts.
No, please don't. But the championship match was Attila. Attila was going against the champion that night. And, man, he's another great guy, the champion. Of course, his name's escaping my mind right now. God, he wrestled for a lot of places because I've seen this guy wrestle before. Bobby, search that up for me because I would hate to not mention his name.
Man, just watching this, seeing Harley outside the ring out of all the Wrestling at the Chase or all the things I've seen Harley, he's taken more hits on the concrete than anybody else.
Camaro Jackson,
man, he is known for working his legs. His legs are fucking ham hocks. But, you know, you got him going against the guy like Attila Khan, who's not known for his wrestling. So they end up wrestling an Attila Khan match, you know, and that course comes with a hidden utensil that was used quite a bit that night.
You don't know nothing about that, dude.
He has a couple of them.
Yeah. And of course, he does pretty well at hiding them from the ref. So he was able to, what was really cool, Brandon, they called him, they didn't call him a rookie, but they introduced him as being from NWA. What's the name of his group?
Exodus.
Exodus. Yeah, NWA Exodus, making his debut, and immediately everyone was booing him, calling him a rookie. The audience was just calling him a rookie, and they booed him through the whole match, and really praised Moses. Of course, Moses has been working there for quite some time, and just to see Brandon get the pin over Moses, and it pretty much will shut the crowd up, and then they actually applauded the whole match. But the same thing goes for Attila. Now, this was Attila's second time coming back to WLW. Of course, he was one of the originators wrestling in WLW, but he hasn't in quite some time. But it's the second match back. First match he had, he went against Trevor Murdoch, and that was a big brawl. Of course, Trevor was there that night too. He didn't wrestle, but he was there signing autographs for everyone. And I tell you, I don't know what Trevor's not eating or working out, because that boy is slimmed down. When he was the NWA heavyweight champion, he had a gut on him. But I don't know. I guess he kicked it into overdrive or something, because he is pretty skinny now.
Well, he also doesn't live on the road anymore either. That helps.
Yeah, it does help.
Even Daniel Bryan talked about that, where he's a vegan, but once he got to WWE, he had to drop that because there's just not enough options for him. Or look at like back when TNA was big, all the wrestlers that would leave WWF and come into TNA looking like a whole new person.
Yeah. So let's see here. There was a story that Travis always told, a lot of his podcasts, and you should check it out. His podcast. It's Paul. Well, his YouTube channel is Paul Orndorff WWE. I think that's what it's called. And then he has a couple different podcasts that he's done personally that he's tossed on that YouTube channel. But he talks about how his dad was such a great heel, and back in that day, the audience members really hated you. And they talked, like Roddy Piper talks about how he was stabbed twice and shot at. Multiple heels back in the day, used to have their tires popped. So they come out and all four tires are popped and the windshield's broken. Well, he tells a story, and he tells it in a couple of his podcasts. Well, him and his dad actually rode together, because he would ride with his dad to a lot of the matches. And that during one of those episodes, they actually hid in an ambulance, and his dad had parked a few miles from the arena. And so that ambulance dropped them off in their car, but the mob of people still followed them and realized who it was, realized his car, and started trying to tip the car over. So Paul had to put his son on the floorboard and just fly out of there. But that's how it was back then. This was people's everything. So they believed it all. So if you were a tremendous heel, man, they would want to kill you at some points.
Well, that's what I know. He worked in Mid-South. I don't know if that's where that was, but Moondog, he had talked about when he worked down there towards Mid-South. I don't even think it was for Mid-South, just in that area. And there'd be a lady there with two purses at all times. If she grabbed the white purse, you were fine. She grabbed the blue purse, you watch out, because there's a brick in it and she's swinging it at you.
Right. It's just crazy, man. Let's see what else there. So, Paul wrestled for quite some time, even after he left WCW, and he was a homebody with Travis. There were still some times where he would just pop up on the road somewhere. And he wrestled all the way up until he was 67. Back in 2017 was the last time he wrestled, and it was a 12-date tour up in Canada. So he was wrestling out there. But unfortunately, Paul's physique was phenomenal, and there was some steroid usage involved. Now, sometimes, depending on who Paul was talking to, he would say he would just dabble in it. If you talk to his son said he used it. But Paul had survived cancer. Literally, he got cancer, and Paul thought it was because of the steroid use that he got the cancer. But he was able to actually beat it. But what eventually got to him was he had dementia. And I've had my great grandmother growing up had dementia, and one day she would know who I was. One day she wouldn't, and so it gets very bad. And she actually would just sit in a chair in the kitchen and just stare out the windows, and that's how bad she was. She wouldn't talk to you unless you repeatedly tried to get an answer out of her. And Travis, told stories too where he would set him in the front room, which was close to the bathroom, but then he would have to ask you where the bathroom was because he couldn't remember even if he had just used it. So dementia is what actually got him. But he went through a bad stage. I guess the dementia got to him, and this was like right at COVID. And Travis didn't know, but someone had put him into not a nursing home, but a medical facility that took care of him. But Travis eventually visited him and realized he wasn't getting the treatment that he deserved. And so there's a big struggle of Travis trying to get custody of his father. Like his mother was getting up in the age, and some cousins actually had custody of him, but the cousins were going in and out of being incarcerated. So it was a big to-do. But Travis finally got custody of his dad and was able to bring him home and helped him, but only had a few months with him before he passed. There's a great picture that Travis posted on his Facebook where he's hugging his father, and it just so happened to be for the last time because he hugged him. His father told him he loved him, and then he laid him down to go to bed, and then he passed away. And I wanted him to be on so bad because I almost related to that whole scenario, because my father had the cancer. When he got his treatments, he was good, and he would know who you were. And my dad was taking some experimental shit. It was pills delivered to his house, and there was a nurse that would have to come over and actually give him the pills because he couldn't touch them because it was like chemo in a pill. And when he took those, like I said, like the next week he would be great, like clear-headed. He'll talk to you, have great conversations, know who you were and everything. But as soon as you noticed that he was due for another pill, he would, downslide, where he would be incoherent, not knowing where he was, not knowing who you were, until he got his next bunch of pills, and then it was back to being great. It's so weird. But not to be too open, but my father's cancer got so bad when he was in the hospital, they he was so incoherent at the time of his passing that I actually had to be the one to make the decision to pull the plugs on my dad and actually have him pass. And it's just a weird thing for your son to have to do. But you know, he idolized his father. I idolized my father. And then I wanted to talk to Travis about his stint being an alcoholic, and him now he's preaching about how alcohol is a demon, and how I think his last podcast he talked about there's a senator up in Canada that he had on his podcast, and they were talking about different things that they're trying to get set up in Canada to where like beer cans and beer boxes would actually have labels on them, kind of like how cigarettes have it, where, you know, it's
Well, Jim went dark.
I say he went silent on mine.
Yeah, check your Facebook really quick, because every time you get messages, the audio goes. But I have you were too young, Bobby. I hate to say that, but you were too young. The WCW. Well, you were a WCW fan, weren't you?
Yeah, that's where I got to know who Paul Orndorff was WCW. I didn't see him before that. I've
Did
gone
you watch
back and
any
seen
of
things since then.
the Tuesday Night Titans? So you didn't. That was a WCW thing where Hulk Hogan and Paul did a flex off.
Yeah,
And did weird things with the people.
There's a lot of baby oil involved, but hopefully not the Diddy oil.
There was a lot of baby oil. Who knows if it was Diddy oil or not?
wow.
But this one right here, this is funny to me.
A lot of help.
Because I relate to this one when I actually met my dad and actually stayed in contact with him. It was more in my high school years. Going to the gym because he was a weightlifter, a bodybuilder, and all that crap. And the part
I
coming
thought
up,
you were going to say you relate to this one because that's what you looked like back in the day.
oh hell, my legs were a lot bigger than Paul's. He had chicken legs and those freaking things. But
The legs can
no,
still pile drive, yes.
hey, back then it was illegal.
Back then he was like the best pile driver.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm just checking. You guys can see me and everything now?
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah, we never lost sight. Your voice just went away.
Oh.
So like with this one right where he tells the guy to get the hell out of there, and then he's telling him, you know, do it right, do it the way I'm doing it, come up, you flex and hold, then control it going down. I went through the same crap with my dad in the gym, and we would spend 4 or 5 hours in the gym, especially on leg days where I had to be carried out of the gym and put in the car because my legs were so tore up I couldn't walk. And
What's
this
this leg day
just
you
made
speak
me
of?
laugh because of that.
What's this leg day you speak of?
What, you don't have leg days?
No, you focus all on arms. If you want to impress the ladies, you either have to have really good arms or a good personality, and forget that.
Well, I got screwed every way. No personality, no big arms.
A lot of wrestlers are like that. If you see them, they're all like muscle bound, good looking chest, big arms, and their legs are very skinny.
Yeah, the chicken legs.
The cameras don't pan to your legs.
But Paul,
For me,
if you look at his thighs, he's got massive thighs, man. I mean, he definitely was a bodybuilder.
yeah, he was definitely in there.
This whole this whole video reminds me of Robert Frank. You guys ever catch any of Robert Frank's videos?
No.
No? Oh my God! You guys both got to check out Robert Frank. He's a guy to come. You know, his favorite thing is like saying, on Tuesday we do arms.
Oh, that guy, yes. I've watched a lot of his.
I
don't think you can
a lot of
finish any-
sexual innuendo type things.
I would say you cannot finish any of his quotes on this podcast. I don't think.
But he also talks about how you do upper chest and arms, and you don't do legs because chicks don't dig legs. You know, it's pretty funny.
No,
Yeah,
the only time.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. No, I was just gonna say the only times anybody ever commented on my legs was in the gym when the guys were around. Then they would ask, "How in the hell do you?" Well, I had to get my jeans. I had to get my jeans specially made because my legs were so damn big and my waist was so small, and I had to have 2 guys on each side spot just because
Yeah, we
the
should
weight
just
I
cut
did.
his mic. Just cut his mic.
He's not
You guys
helping
are
himself
perverted.
out.
That's what it is. You guys only think about your gay shit. That's what it is. Hey, you do you. You know, it's okay. But I know you guys got that industrial model that plugs right into the wall.
Hey.
No
Don't
battery.
knock it until you try it. Yeah, so the time that Paul came in through SICW, and you can throw some of the pictures of him and Herb and him and Herb's wife. He was already out of professional wrestling as a worker, but still he came through, and it was great just to meet him. You know, any legend that comes through St. Louis, man, it's just one of their classics. These guys, they're what made our business. You always got to give props to these gentlemen. Man, I mean, he's done everything in the business. I mean, I didn't even talk about in WCW. He was the world television champion, and then he was the world tag team champions with Paul Roma. And I think Paul Roma, I think he's coming in through. I think he's in our Fan Fest this year.
I thought so.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So, but they were.
I say he also ran the power plant in WCW.
Yeah, and Travis talking about how he loved that. You know, he loved getting people into shape and getting them ready. And you know, of course, you know, it's kind of what I do too. You know, I know my timing is coming up. You know, it's closer to the end than the beginning. And I love getting the next generation getting up and going, you know, just to, you know, stay in the business for one, and then having a connection to the business, I think is great. And that's what he was doing. Of course, when everything fell through in WCW, but, you know, he didn't have a job no more because they closed down the power plant. But so unfortunately, July 12th, 2021, Paul Orndorff passed away. He was at 71 years old. I wanted to talk to Travis too, because he talks about how he thinks the dementia came from the multiple chair shots, multiple concussions that he had over the years. And I really wanted to get his opinion on Stone Cold, because through Stone Cold coming up through WCW, he was really good friends with Paul Orndorff. And there was the Vince McMahon documentary on Netflix. There was a part of that documentary that talked about the Chris Benoit and his whole stuff, which doesn't need to be mentioned. But Stone Cold at one part had talked about how he doesn't believe that concussions can cause CTE and dementia and stuff like that. And with him being so close with Paul Orndorff, I wanted to kind of get his take to see what he thought of Stone Cold saying that. You know, because CTE, I mean, it's proven to exist. Even The Undertaker talks about CTE and all the times that he had concussions. And, of course, his big concussion was, you know, with him versus Brock Lesnar, which caused him basically to end the streak that he had for his WrestleMania matches. He was like 21-0, and then he lost to Brock, and no one really knows if it was because he had a concussion and he wrestled the rest of the match with it, or if it was planned that way, or what. They're keeping it secret, but you about halfway through the match, he got concussed, and till this day, he doesn't remember the match. Now, he has since rewatched that match, but that's the only way he remembers it, and just by rewatching it. But, you know, a couple days after the match, months after the match, he couldn't remember anything. Talked about how, you know, he was being talked to via the nurse or the doctor, and the Undertaker's wife was in the same room, and the doctor asked the Undertaker what his name was, and he looked at her and was trying to, you know, nudge her to tell him what his name was so he can tell the doctor. So it's just, I believe in it because I feel that I've lost some memory, and I blame it all on the chair shots and the concussions that I know I've had. And I don't do this on a daily like the Undertaker, like Paul did back in the day. You know, they were running 300 plus days a year.
There's too much in other sports that have been studied on it too, especially in the NFL. Like you look at an Antonio Brown and what happened to him after his major concussions, and how he just lost his mind year after year, getting worse and worse. There's too much on it. If you look beyond wrestling, CTE is real. The concussions and all that damage is real.
Well, Travis, and I hate to keep saying it in like the second person. I kind of wish he was on here. But Travis had talked about how they had sent his brain away to get looked at. And they said that his brain was like of a 4 or 5 year old baby, that had shrunk down to that size. And that they couldn't figure out how he even knew who Travis was, you know, on the times that he did. Because they said that his brain was that screwed up. But yeah, so maybe we'll get Travis on here during another time, find out what the miscommunication could have been, or maybe it's just you know, like I said, we're all due for this big old storm here this week, which is supposed to wipe us out for, you know, Tuesday through Thursday, and then we're going to get hit with another one next week. So could be that, could be the time zone change, but
could be that he doesn't like us.
That can't not be it. But if anyway, you know, we offer him all the best in the world because he's just out there trying to promote his father. There's cool pictures on his Facebook where he just took, he just went to Netflix Raw when they were in New Orleans, I think, and he brought out one of his dad's robes and wore it, and a lot of people came up to him and asked him if that was real, and he would explain to them, yes, that, you know, he's my father, and I just wanted to wear it tonight to, you know, show some love to his father. And that's what this whole YouTube channel that he does, besides the awareness of alcohol and drugs and everything that he's, you know, talking about, he also is just promoting his father, trying to keep his dad alive, you know. And I think all of us wrestlers, you know, that's our biggest fear. And it's definitely, a lot of wrestlers talk about it when they get hurt and haven't been in the public eye for a couple of years because they're trying to, you know, heal. Like when Edge came back to the WWE, he was hoping that the fans would still remember him. Of course they did. Fans' memories, man, like all the wrestlers say, oh, I hope they remember me. All the fans do. If you're a fan of wrestling, you know, you're watching all the stuff, you know, all the older stuff, all the newer stuff. Because he was even worried about that in AEW. Would the fans of AEW know who Edge is? You know, of course, his name is Adam Copeland, and that's who he's going by. You know, he's going by his real name in AEW. But a lot of them like that. Nikki Bella was talking about that because she was a surprise entrance on the Royal Rumble this past, 2 weekends ago. And she hasn't wrestled in years. And so she was kind of hoping, will they still remember me? Do they still know who I am? You know, so that's always like one of the wrestler's biggest fears. So his, you know, at least Travis is keeping his dad out there. And, you know, we posted one of the videos and it's got like almost 800 views on it too. So, you know, the fans for Paul are still out there. And I'm sure we'll post in its full length this Wrestling at the Chase one. I know we kind of skimmed over the Wrestling at the Chase, but the big thing with that one was Ted DiBiase versus, you know, it was Ted and Paul versus Harley and what's his name? Bob Brown, Bulldog Bob Brown, was it? The funny thing about the ending of that match is Ted actually pinned Harley Race. And instead of the announcer talking about how, you know, the Ted DiBiase and Paul Orndorff won, he announced, and the new heavyweight champion of the world, Ted DiBiase. And, you know, so he totally screwed it up, but it made everyone think, and actually probably made Ted DiBiase's name, you know, right there from that screw up, because everyone thought that the announcer just said that he won. He's the new heavyweight champion, even though it was a tag team match. So
it's some wishful thinking.
I mean, that's what we should do.
Yeah, but going back to Travis wearing his dad's robe. Travis was saying that his anxiety almost got the better of him and he didn't want to go out.
Well, and that's because, you know, he doesn't go to that many social events where drinking can be involved. And, you know, he's a recovering alcoholic. And this was like his first time where he was going out, where there was thousands of fans. And, you know, it's like a test for him because, you know, he wasn't drinking no more. And so, yeah, the anxiety, you know, wearing your father's robe, do they know who he is? Not socially drinking with other people, you know, I'm sure that will get to you.
Club soda and energy drinks.
Yeah.
Kind of tastes the same.
You know, I'm not one to drink coffee. I know Bobby loves coffee, and I don't know about you, Nate, but yeah.
Yep, I love coffee.
I drink about 4 cups a day and a Monster.
Wow, that's just crazy. But I tell you, I ain't worth crap until I get my first soda in. Now, in the morning time, you know, I'm drinking water, but until I get that hit of caffeine, you know, I ain't worth a damn. So,
yeah, I don't know what that sleep thing is, and my kids and everything keep me really, really busy all the time. So,
how come you haven't combined those, Bobby, and just got the energy drink coffee ones, like the FTC, the fire department energy drink brand? They do really cold Irish coffee with no alcohol in it.
No cold coffee for me, not even Bailey's.
Now I can get down with some Baileys. That's pretty good stuff there.
No cold coffee drinks.
No.
Shame on you.
Since Travis is not here, let's just go over. And you know, there's only one match that's been announced for the next SICW show, and I'm sure Bobby's going to be on there. Hopefully, Bobby is getting. Well, hopefully Bobby is getting Kowalski. That would be great. It hasn't been announced or anything like that, but I would love that to happen.
Found out that was the giant weight that landed on me.
Well, and the reason why I bring that up is because we're kind of switching. I am now, Bobby unfortunately has to start all over when it comes to going after Glenn for the belt. However, due to his comments that he posted, talking about me, I've been awarded a match with him that night. So was it March 1st is when we're back at the Belleville
and it's set
Fairgrounds?
for the Central States Championship. So if you win and you beat him and you bring the belt back to the podcast, Bobby, you gonna challenge Bob? Are you gonna challenge Jim?
I mean,
you said you would wrestle anybody to get it.
It is my title. So if he has it.
Well, that's why I'm hoping that maybe we can pull a match between you and Kowalski, and we can just switch titles for a little bit. You know, I can run with the Central States. You can run with the Classic.
If I have the Classic title, I'll leave you alone with the Central States. But it wouldn't be our first time wrestling either.
Right. Probably won't be our last one either. But
one thing I don't
for the
get
business.
is on the poster it has Attila, but him by himself. So who's he going against?
He's making his return. Whether that's him and Stephen E. talking or something, we don't really know. He's just making his return since losing that match.
Yes.
So what's the Canadian Zero doing up there? He's not wrestling.
No,
Bobby can tell you where Glenn is, the Canadian Zero is.
That's Glenn's shadow. There's another shadow too, but he's just not in that picture. Apparently there's a giant freaking eclipse follows him now too.
Yeah, true. You know, we should get the crowd to yell 51st state when the Canadian Zero comes out with his Canadian flag. That would be funny.
We already talked about the other March show that's coming. Of course, it's in East St. Louis at the Shriners. You know, there's already been a match made on that, which is going to be Lilith Khan versus what was that girl's name?
I don't know.
She just got back from Japan. I had her looked up last time.
Yep. Yeah.
She just got back from Japan.
Normally, I'd have Herb's Facebook pulled up on my screen here, but with what we were talking about today, I didn't have it ready.
But yeah, so man,
scrolling through, seeing all the pictures from that match.
Yeah, because I need to make sure we get the correct date out on that. Because I'm thinking there's two dates in my mind. For some reason, the 22nd or the 29th.
It's the 29th, but you're not the only one that's been making that mistake. So I don't know what's going on the 22nd, but the Shriners is the 29th.
So Shriners is the 29th. And this building is beautiful. I tell you, if you guys,
100%.
I know both of you have been there, but if you haven't been there, man, this is such a historical building. And we like to toss out there that it's going to be an early start time as well, I think, because there was an early start time last year. And it's a fenced-in building. The parking lot is all fenced in. There's a guy that watches over all the cars, makes sure nothing silly happens. Like I said, it's a beautiful building.
Just scrolling through Herb's Facebook, there's another match that is announced for the Shriner show. We're bringing in Gary Graham to go against Kowalski.
Oh. Now that should be interesting because if you guys have ever watched one of his matches, he normally comes to the ring in like a dog collar, kind of like Junkyard Dog, where it's got the dog collar and the chain and everything. So that'd be, because I know Kowalski is going to have Lucky P in his corner or someone else in his corner, whether it be Steve Michaels or what. So it'll be interesting on that one to see how that goes.
Good friend who we should bring on as a guest, Jason Jones, will also be there.
Yes. So actually, I talked to Herb the other day about getting Jason to come on because I would like to get Jason on. And then we already booked another gentleman to come on next week. It's another great guy that I can't remember his name. He came out and did an interview during our last show, talking about his dog pound. If I can get into my phone, I'll be able to find it real quick. But black guy, long dreads.
I know this. I just like this picture Herb posted. It's just funnier than hell.
I say James Jeffries will be at the Shriner show. We're bringing in Danny Dollar to the Shriner show.
No, Jeffries, I think, is coming.
No, that was March 1st. Sorry, that was March 1st.
Yeah, so James Jeffries, who just recently had a birthday. is going to be at the March 1st show.
He posted this all the way back on the 3rd. Herb posts a lot of stuff. It took me a minute to get there. Kelsey Magnolia.
Magnolia. I knew it had a flower name to it. So, but yes, again, they were tag team partners last time, and then Lilith Khan destroyed the tag team they went against, and then destroyed her. But like you said,
she apparently doesn't like flowers and stomped that Magnolia out.
But like you said,
if you want to watch that match, it is on our YouTube page.
Yeah, so she went to the strong style, as they call it, the Japanese wrestling. So it'll be interesting to see what she brings back to the fold and see what she carries on during this match. But yeah, so that's our next 2 shows. I do want to do a shout out to this Saturday up in Alton. There's a new wrestling company that this is going to be their 2nd show. Midwest Coalition, is that the name of it?
Something along those lines.
Yeah, so the reason why I want to call them out is just because they got the legend cowboy Bob Orton Jr. Going against Attila Khan. So that's going to be a very interesting match. And then Lilith Khan is on that match too. You know, she's the women's champion out there.
With Skylar Sparks.
Yes, and I just seen her wrestle. She wrestles for WLW as well. And she carries, I don't think they call it the women's championship, but there's a championship that she carries out there. So it's going to be interesting because they're both kind of, you know, champions and they're going against each other. But Lilith Khan still has the advantage of her being 10 foot tall, and this lady is not. She's still in the 5 foot range. So it's going to be interesting to see how this match goes. But definitely, if you're in the Alton area, check that out. It's a nice building. You can go there earlier because half the building is a restaurant, nice sit-down restaurant, so you can eat and then stick around for the wrestling that comes on later on. Oh, you guys got it up. That's cool. So, yeah. So, a lot of different matches on there. But, you know, I will be there because I want to see Bob. You know, the Academy hasn't been up and running for a few months just because we're trying to lock down a building and get stuff up and running again. So I haven't been hanging out with Bob lately, and I'm used to hanging out with Bob every week. So I'm going to go see him wrestle, see what he can do against the likes of Attila Khan. But yeah, that's the next couple of shows we got going on. You know, from our last show down in Belleville, they announced that the racing team announced that we're going to have a few shows going back out there at the Worldwide Technology. So we'll keep you up to date on those shows when they're happening. Because I know they're mixing around with NASCAR. So that'll be a great show to go to.
Right there, June 15th, 14th and 15th for the Indy, September 6th and 7th for NASCAR, 27th and 28th for NHRA. Even though they didn't want us back, we're still coming back. They changed their mind.
I'll say they must have liked it.
Yeah.
Well, that's the one where the monster producer came up to me and asked me to shut the show down so their country music star they had could sing because nobody was going and watching him. And I, of course, told her no.
That's also the one where they're running the drag strip behind us. You could see people standing at the top row turned around facing us.
Yeah.
Yep.
Definitely great.
And of course, I said no and go away.
So I understand them not wanting to take attention away from their main attraction. That's what they're there for. But just book it smarter because people like us.
Well, not only that, why don't you just combine it? They could have came over.
I was saying, if you book it smarter to where we're in between races, you could see the racing, and the wrestling, just like we did for NASCAR.
Yeah.
Even the heats and stuff were done. Then we wrestled. Then they did more heats. Then we wrestled. Then they did the main race.
Yeah.
Yeah, because the drivers would come over and watch you guys wrestle. So, I mean, drivers like it too.
And we'll do a shout out to Baker. Was it Baker? I think is the YouTube.
Is Baker going to be there too?
I don't know, but he recently posted the video of him getting in the ring at the SICW show and hanging out with me and Herb and the ex-mayor. I believe the current mayor too for that city was there as well. But he just posted it, and it's got like thousands of views. So just want to give him a shout out and take him for coming in and watching. A big wrestling fan. Normally he sticks with WWE or AEW, so it's nice for have him come out and catch the SICW show. And man, he had a ball. So that's always great.
Yeah, he named you his favorite wrestler. So come on, Texan.
Well, that title, normally helps when you got the classic title around your shoulder, around your waist. Most people flock to that title. It's got all the names on it. Everyone from the St. Louis Hall of Fame is on that title, so it means a lot. And
just to give him the proper shout out, it's not Baker, it's Baker Banter.
Banter.
Yeah.
Okay, I think one of his other socials is called Baker. I don't know if it's his Facebook account or if it's.
Let's say the one that you reposted. I clicked that link and it took me to Baker Banter.
Okay, but yeah, great kid there.
Yeah,
And
on
the
her
whole family is wonderful.
Facebook, he posted a link back to us for the funniest thing ever, your He-Man toy haul.
Oh yeah. Well, speaking of
It
that,
had nothing to do with wrestling. It had to do with He-Man toys.
Who doesn't like
I found that fun.
So
Yeah.
I've only got one thing
Well,
to show you guys. And
hold on. We got to do it the right way.
he is very minty. And this is Johnny V. Now,
Damn, son, where'd you find this?
This was before my time in wrestling. I don't remember him being a manager, but he clearly was one. Growing up, I remember the Bobby Heenan, and then what was his name? The Chinese guy. He was a manager back in the day too. Managed Yokozuna when Yokozuna was around.
Oh.
Yeah, who was?
But I have him up in my LJN case. But this guy is so minty clean. Most of the time, you have the paint rubbing off somewhere, but not on this guy. This guy looks really clean. And
I can't believe I couldn't think of Mr. Fuji's name.
Mr. Fuji. I can't remember. I can't believe I forgot that name. A lot of the guys nowadays are looking back, and I tell that to the academy students too. Look back at the old stuff, because the old moves look great. Mr. Fuji was the first one that does
his
that.
Finisher. Someone had told me to look up his finisher. I didn't even know he wrestled, and now I look at his stuff. I'm like, that's some good stuff.
Yeah, and he does the coffin drop. Well, it's now called the coffin drop. It wasn't called the coffin drop back then. But, yeah, so, there's a current star in AEW that does the coffin drop. Yeah, so I don't know much about him. The figure looks freaking awesome. So he's definitely a cool-looking manager. But, yeah, I've seen him, and most of the time when the LJN figures have these one digits, sticking up, those are the first things that go, besides the paint. most of the time those fingers go. Either they've been chewed on, you know, their whole nickname was dog toys anyway. That if you leave them down on the ground, your dogs are gonna run to them and start chewing up on them. So have this guy pretty minty. It was a nice pickup. But you know, I had to scale back on my purchases last week and this week. You know, because I made a very big purchase last week. Well, I finished a very big purchase, which is I am now the current owner of the wrestling ring that we use on a monthly basis. So that was a very big purchase that I finally finished paying off. And, you know, now I'm a proud owner of a wrestling ring and the steel cage and everything else like that. So it's great to be on that side of the business now too. So yeah, so if you guys ever want to help tear down their ring, you know, the fans and stuff, you know, by all means, you know, help us tear it down. It makes it go a lot quicker. Believe it or not, though, Bobby is a witness of this. Sunday during our TV tapings, which was the second time that I put this ring together under the ownership, it broke 3 times. Once before we even got started, we had one of the turnbuckles break, and we got that going. And then during the first match, the very opposite side of the turnbuckle, on the opposite side of the ring, that turnbuckle broke. And then the top rope broke eventually. So we had some shit going on. But yeah, it was very
you should be able to see that on last night's
yes, on SICW's YouTube channel. They showed the first match from the TV tapings, and very first match, that bottom rope come flying over because and that person just barely, you know, got on it or barely touched it, and it, you know, going from the corner, it flew into like the middle of the ring, which is kind of very dangerous. But you could see the guys in the background working on the ring while the match was still going. And then even when Glenn Williams had an interview that he was doing, you still see him kind of fixing the ring up, kind of getting it back together. So we were definitely on the fly. You know, the second day of owning the ring, second day of putting it up, and we're working out the bugs. So
it should all be easier now.
Yeah.
You already experienced the worst stuff, but you get easier.
Yeah, it can only go up from here, right?
Yeah.
But again, just to recap, you know, thank you guys for tuning in to this podcast. There.
I just pulled the video up. First move. Waco got across the ring and put right into it.
Nice.
Well, let's put it on here then, yeah?
Are you able to do that?
Yeah, I can do that.
I say if you go into about 2 minutes and 33 seconds in, 2:35.
Gotcha.
And that's more because there's intro and stuff. It was really the beginning of the match.
Let's watch the ad to get some revenue for them, yeah?
Let's skip to about 2:33.
2:33.
Yep.
That's the gentleman we got coming on next week.
Got to get him to do his dope. There's your ex-partner, Waco.
Yep.
Was he going to do that stomp on the podcast, too?
Just might.
Yeah, look at Waco backing up. That's why you dish him as a partner, right, Jim?
Yeah.
Yep, there. Waco's foot. barely touched that.
I know it. And the corner that he's in now, that's the original corner that we had to put together before the show. And it just so happened it pops the other side.
This is a playground fight. It's like a third grader on a senior in high school.
Again, that's a pretty big difference there.
Yeah, it's a big difference.
So, like I said, as this is playing out,
you're just tossing that third grader around.
Yeah.
As this plays out, I just want to again thank you guys for the amazing jump in subscribers. We could not believe it that we are now up to 839. Like I said, our next goal is the 1,000.
And for those who did join, hoping that Travis would be on, we hope he stick around. Hopefully we'll have him on again later and he shows up. But we hope you stick around for these two guys and the rest. I recognize this footage.
Yeah, so it jumps to that. But yeah, so man, thank you guys for that. The views on our channel is climbing too. Definitely appreciate that. And I know you guys probably like the old matches that Nate puts out, but Nate's going to start putting out some of the older shows from SICW in its entirety, which would be kind of cool because we normally just show clips of the matches, just because like these are the current matches that just happened. And if you haven't seen it, we always like to give SICW the first shot at showing those on their TV show. But for the older videos, Nate's going to start putting those out so you guys can see those. Some of them might be behind our little paywall that we still haven't quite set up, but we'll set that up soon. And of course, we're going to get some T-shirts made, like we've been talking about, and get those out. That you guys can purchase those as well. So we got some things still in the pipeline that we're trying to work out all the errors to. But we appreciate your subscribers and the views on these, and we love bringing you this stuff. You know, we all have the passion for wrestling, whether it be from outside looking in or from me and Bobby's standpoint, inside looking out. It's just a great thing to be in. And like Nate said, we're going to be one of the most popular podcasts here pretty soon. And we're going to try to take over the world. All right.
A little bit of a landing for Glenn there.
You know, it gets to a point to where if they break their neck, I'm okay with it.
Well, I got some tricks I'm going to try to pull off of on our match.
I don't know if we ever fully finished mentioning it earlier, but for March 1st, Lariat versus Lariat 2.
Yeah. So if you guys ever want to see that, just hop on to mine, the Big Texan, Jim, the Big Texan Hoffarth, and you can see that video because I don't think we posted it here. But it was definitely a quick match. It probably lasted all of 15 seconds. Because he simply
just. You on your first date, yeah?
No, that was 3 minutes. No.
We're not talking about the 2 minutes and 55 seconds of cuddling.
You know, we could probably, just for a refresher for people coming in, repost that match on our podcast, on our shorts. I'm sure it qualifies as a short.
Yeah, it's close to 3 minutes now, so yeah.
Well, that one, like I said, it was about 15 seconds. It was just him,
not 15 minutes.
Yeah, just him trying to shoot a lariat real quick on me and not affected me at all. And as soon as he gave up, turned around, come back to me, bam! I hit him with mine, and he was out. And hopefully that's how the March 1st match is going to go as well.
It will.
You remember when he couldn't do a figure four? And there's the eclipse.
Here comes Kowalski trying to do his best. Andre coming up here in a bit. The way Andre used to pick people up with one hand. They're just best, Andre.
Just so you guys know, that match that we are playing right now is a no DQ. Basically, anything goes. And that's why the ref, didn't disqualify Glenn for having Kowalski in the ring. Just want to point that out there because otherwise you'd be like, well, what the hell?
Yeah, I can't even say anything. I knew a lot of stuff was coming, and if you saw the whole match, you saw that I countered a lot of their old tricks that they used before, but I did not see that one coming.
Yeah, because technically, Glenn and Sean Vincent isn't part of the Lucky P organization.
No.
So no one would have seen that coming at all. But now, thanks to that match, I know that there's a possibility that he might come out during mine. So at least
he never even said what their relationship is or anything. Like Kowalski and I, we've had some bad blood in the past. I don't know if he came out just to rekindle some of that, some feelings he's been sitting on, or is he teamed with Glenn now? Like, no idea.
Right. But all right. On that note, I'd like to call. Thank you guys for tuning in. We're gonna have a guest next week as well, and hopefully he can make it. But yeah, definitely thanks for getting together and spending a little quality time with us. And until next week, thank you, Bobby. Thank you, Nate. But you guys have a good night, and we'll see you next week. You guys have a good one.
See you next week.
See ya.
Night.